Listen carefully because this may hit harder than you expect. The silence you keep calling rejection is not always rejection. Sometimes it is pressure. Sometimes it is panic. Sometimes it is someone losing the fight they thought they could win by disappearing. Right now, you may be staring at your phone, checking the screen again, replaying old words, reading between lines that no longer exist, asking yourself why he has said nothing. And the easy answer people give you is, if he cared, he would have reached out. But real life is rarely that neat. Some people go quiet because they are done. That is true. But some people go quiet because what they feel is catching up faster than what they know how to handle. That is what no one says out loud. Silence can be pride. Silence can be fear. Silence can be shame wearing a calm face. So before you decide his quiet means you meant nothing, stay with me. Because in many cases, the silence is not the end of the story. It is the part where everything he avoided begins getting louder inside him. And when that pressure rises high enough, he does not stay distant forever. He breaks, he reaches out. And when he finally does, the truth often comes out heavier than anyone expected. So do not click away, because what happens in silence explains more than most conversations ever could. A man often uses silence the way other people use excuses. He uses it to feel steady when he is not steady at all. He uses it to feel powerful when his emotions are starting to shake him. When things get too real, when feelings require honesty, when accountability is close enough to touch, he may not lean in. He may pull back. He may delay. He may vanish into that quiet space where he thinks no one can reach him. And at first, it works for him. It creates doubt. It creates confusion. It makes you wonder what changed, what you missed, what you should have said differently. That reaction feeds the illusion that he is still in control. But control built on your confusion is never real control. It only lasts while you keep reacting. It only feels strong while you are still chasing clarity. That is why the silence begins to fail the moment you stop feeding it. The moment you stop sending long messages, stop explaining your heart, stop begging for basic honesty, the whole energy changes. He expected movement from you. He expected questions. He expected your emotions to keep the bridge alive while he stayed hidden. And when that does not happen, the quiet stops feeling like safety. It starts feeling like distance. It starts feeling like loss. Pay attention here because this is where the shift begins. The same silence he used to hide now becomes the room where his own thoughts corner him. And once that starts, the silence is no longer protecting him. It is exposing him. When you stop reacting, he is left alone with everything he pushed down. That is the part most people miss. He is not only sitting in quiet, he is sitting with memory. He is sitting with the replay of moments he dismissed too quickly, messages he never answered, truths he kept postponing. He starts remembering your consistency, your warmth, your patience, the way you showed up even when the connection felt uneven. Those memories do not hit with the same force when you are still there trying to fix everything in real time. They hit when you are gone. They hit when the room is quiet and there is no fresh conversation to distract him from what he failed to value. Men often process emotion later, not sooner, not while the moment is happening, but after, in absence, in stillness, in those empty spaces where the mind begins filling in what the heart was too proud to name. And that is why your silence lands harder than your speeches ever did. When you were explaining, he could stay focused on the discussion. When you went quiet, he had to face himself. Suddenly the songs feel different. The nights feel longer. Familiar places feel strange. Small things pull him back into thoughts of you without warning. He may try to stay busy. He may tell himself it is nothing. But the mind keeps returning to what felt meaningful. So if you think your quiet erased you from his world, think again. Often it does the opposite. It places you right at the center of the thoughts he can no longer outrun. And yes, there is more to this, so keep listening. Silence also gives guilt the perfect place to grow. Guilt does not like noise. It does not bloom in chaos, distractions, and endless conversation. It blooms when everything settles and there is nowhere left to hide. When communication ends, excuses start losing their strength. He can no longer blame timing, confusion, stress, or mixed signals with the same confidence. He can no longer use your presence as a cushion against his own choices. Instead, he starts seeing the moments more clearly. The times he should have spoken and did not. The times he knew you were hurting and still delayed honesty. the times he chose comfort over courage. This is why silence becomes heavy for him. It removes the easy escape routes. It turns the past into a mirror. And in that mirror, he sees not only what happened, but the part he played in it. That is a hard thing for anyone to sit with, especially someone who wanted to believe he handled things better than he actually did. Guilt attacks the story he told himself. It whispers that maybe he was careless with something real. Maybe he took your patience for granted. Maybe he assumed you would stay available no matter how long he disappeared. And once those thoughts start building, the pressure changes. It is no longer about avoiding a difficult talk. It becomes about escaping the discomfort growing inside him. He may check your page. He may reread old messages. He may wonder if he waited too long. He may imagine you healing without him and feel something sharp in his chest he cannot easily explain. That is not random. That is the weight of delayed truth. And delayed truth has a way of demanding release. Then comes the moment that changes everything. It is the moment you stop needing answers. Not because you never cared, but because you finally understand that someone's actions already gave you the information words kept delaying. That shift is powerful. As long as you need closure from him, he still feels your emotional reach. He still feels your questions. He still senses that part of your peace is tied to whether he explains himself. And that gives him leverage, even if he never says it. But once you stop asking, once you stop leaning toward him for understanding, once you decide that your healing will not wait for his honesty, the whole balance turns. Your silence no longer sounds confused. It sounds settled. It sounds clear. It sounds like someone who has chosen peace over emotional chaos. That is when he feels the risk in a deeper way. Because now the question is no longer whether you are hurt. The question becomes whether you are done, whether you are moving forward without him, whether the chance to explain is slipping away for good. That possibility unsettles him more than your anger ever could, because anger still feels connected. Silence with self-respect feels final. And when a person senses they may be becoming irrelevant in the life of someone who once cared deeply, urgency rises fast. He starts feeling the need to say what he left unsaid. Not always because he has suddenly become wise, but because the window to speak feels like it is closing. And nothing brings hidden truth to the surface faster than the fear of being left behind emotionally. So when he finally contacts you, understand what is really happening. He is rarely just sending a casual message. It may look light on the surface. It may begin with something small, something careful, something almost ordinary. But beneath that message is pressure that has been building for days, weeks, sometimes longer. By the time he reaches out, he has already been sitting with memory, regret, fear, and unfinished thoughts. That is why what comes next can be more honest than you expected. First, he may admit confusion. He may say he did not know how to handle what he felt. He may say things got intense and he shut down. He may admit he was overwhelmed, scared, or more affected than he wanted to show. Then the deeper truth starts slipping out. He begins naming the mistakes. He remembers where he pulled away. He recognizes how much patience you gave. He starts saying things he had no courage to say when your attention still felt guaranteed. And this part matters, because these admissions reveal that the silence was not always indifference. Many times it was avoidance. Avoidance of vulnerability. Avoidance of responsibility. Avoidance of the truth that your presence mattered more than he wanted to admit. He may even confess that he did not think you would really walk away. He may say your absence forced him to see things differently. He may tell you that losing access to your energy changed the way he understood the connection. These are not small details. These are the cracks in the wall finally opening. And when the wall opens, far more can come through than either of you expected. But hear this clearly, because this is where many people lose themselves. A confession is not the same as change. Awareness is not the same as readiness. A man admitting the truth does not automatically mean he has become the person you needed him to be. It means he sees more now. It means the silence made his inner world harder to ignore. That can be meaningful. It can be healing. It can even bring the closure you once begged for. But it does not erase what the silence cost you. It does not erase the nights you spent overthinking, the emotional instability, the pain of trying to understand someone who kept you in the dark. And this matters because his honesty can sound so relieving that you may feel pulled to soften too quickly. You may feel tempted to carry his guilt, comfort his regret, or help him process what he finally discovered about himself. Do not rush there. You are not responsible for repairing the damage his avoidance created. You are not required to become the safe place he returns to simply because he has found the words now. Listening does not mean reopening the door. Understanding does not mean offering immediate access. Compassion does not require self-abandonment. In fact, real strength often looks like hearing someone fully and still moving slowly, still watching, still protecting your peace. Because emotional speeches can happen in one intense moment. Real change shows up in patterns, in consistency, in action that repeats long after the guilt has faded and the emotions calm down. So if his truth reaches you, let it be information, not pressure. Let it help you see clearly, not drag you backward. There is also something deeper happening in that moment, and if you catch it, you will never see these situations the same way again. When he confesses, part of what he is trying to release is the weight silence placed on him. Speaking gives him relief. Saying it out loud lifts pressure. It eases the guilt. It makes him feel for a moment like he is doing something brave. And maybe he is. But his relief is not the same thing as your resolution. He may feel lighter after admitting what he avoided. You may still need distance after hearing it. He may feel cleansed by honesty. You may feel stirred up all over again. That difference matters, because many people mistake someone else's release for mutual healing. It is not always mutual. Sometimes one person finally feels better because they said what they needed to say, while the other person is left deciding what to do with a truth that arrived late. That is why you cannot let the emotion of the moment make the choice for you. Stay grounded. Notice the difference between sincerity and sustainability. Notice whether he is only opening his heart now because he feels you slipping away, or whether he is prepared to live differently over time. Notice whether he wants reconnection or simply relief from regret. These are not the same thing. And if you miss that, you can end up stepping back into the same pattern just because the confession sounded deep. Do not confuse emotional intensity with emotional maturity. One moment of honesty can be real and still not be enough. One message can be genuine and still not qualify someone for full access to your heart again. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. Your power was never in making him confess. Your power was in becoming steady enough not to collapse while waiting for a confession. That is the real shift. The unanswered messages did not prove you were small. The quiet days did not prove you were easy to forget. If anything, they revealed who could face truth and who needed distance before they could even look at it. Your silence was not weakness. It was space. Space for the truth to rise. Space for patterns to reveal themselves. Space for you to stop begging for what should have been given freely. And somewhere in that process, you changed. You stopped measuring your worth by someone else's timing. You stopped treating delayed honesty like a prize. You stopped believing that being chosen late is the same as being valued well. That is growth, real growth, the kind that makes your energy different when he comes back around. You are no longer scrambling for reassurance. You are listening from solid ground. You are hearing the truth without handing over your center. And that changes everything. Because now, whether he speaks or stays silent, your life is not paused inside his uncertainty. If he comes back with words, let time test them. If he comes back with regret, let actions carry the weight, not promises. If he comes back too late, let that lateness teach the lesson it came to teach. You do not have to punish. You do not have to prove anything. You only have to stay aligned with the peace you fought to rebuild. And if this is speaking directly to your situation, stay with me, because the final truth matters most. The final truth is simple, but it takes strength to live it. Silence did not destroy you. It sharpened your vision. It showed you who someone becomes when honesty is hard. It showed you how much emotional labor you were carrying. It showed you that closure is not always a gift another person hands you. Sometimes closure is the day you stop waiting for their version of the story to decide your worth. And if he does return, if he does finally open up, if he admits everything he once buried, remember this before you answer with your heart. Truth arriving late is still late. It may matter. It may validate what you felt. It may even bring peace to questions that once haunted you. But it does not automatically deserve reunion. You are allowed to receive honesty and still choose distance. You are allowed to appreciate the confession and still protect the boundary. You are allowed to see his humanity without making his healing your task. That is not cold. That is healthy. That is what self-respect looks like when emotion tries to pull you backward. So do not fear the silence anymore. Let it reveal. Let it teach. Let it separate your need for answers from your deeper need for peace. Because in the end, the strongest version of you is not the one who waited to be chosen. It is the one who learned how to choose herself so fully that even the truth, when it finally arrives, cannot shake her foundation. And that is why, whether he reaches out tomorrow, next week, or never at all, your power remains with you. Always. Listen closely, because this is not the usual advice people throw at you when someone goes quiet. Most people will tell you that silence means the story is over, that if he cared, he would have spoken by now, that if he wanted to keep you, he would have made it obvious. And sometimes that is true, but not always. Sometimes silence is not the end. Sometimes it is pressure. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is a man trying to outrun feelings that are catching him faster than he expected. Right now, you may be staring at your phone more than you want to admit. You may be checking if your screen lights up, replaying old conversations, reading old messages, asking yourself the same painful question again and again. Why has he not reached out? Why did he go cold? Why does it feel like he vanished after making you feel so much? But stay with me, because this part matters. Silence speaks. It says things words try to hide. It reveals what pride refuses to admit. It exposes what avoidance tries to bury. And the truth is, some men do not go silent because they feel nothing. They go silent because what they feel is too real, too heavy, too uncomfortable for the version of themselves they are used to being. So before you decide his silence means you meant nothing, hear this fully. In many cases, silence is not peace. It is a storm with no witnesses. It is pressure building in a closed room. And when that pressure rises high enough, he will not stay silent forever. He will reach out. He will break. And when he finally does, he may admit far more than you ever expected. A man often uses silence when he feels control slipping out of his hands. That is the first truth. He may not say that out loud. He may not even understand it clearly himself. But when emotions get real, when conversations demand honesty, when he feels exposed, unsure, or emotionally backed into a corner, silence can feel safer than speaking. Speaking means revealing something. Speaking means being seen. Speaking means risking rejection, judgment, or the loss of the strong image he tries to protect. So he backs away. He delays. He disappears into that cold distance where he thinks he can breathe again. At first, it feels powerful to him. It creates uncertainty. It makes the other person anxious. It makes you wonder what happened. And that reaction can feed his sense of control, because as long as you are reaching, asking, trying, explaining, he still feels like he holds the emotional center. But control that depends on your confusion is weak control. It is borrowed power. It only works while you keep reacting to it. And the moment you stop chasing clarity, the whole thing begins to collapse. This is where the story shifts. He expected you to call. He expected you to send another long message. He expected you to break the silence for him so he could keep hiding inside it. But when you do not, when you finally go still, when you finally choose dignity over desperation, that silence changes shape. It no longer feels like a shield. It starts feeling like a wall closing in on him from the inside. Once your reaction disappears, he is no longer controlling the silence. He is sitting inside it, and that is very different. What once felt like space starts feeling like emptiness. What once felt like protection starts feeling like isolation. He notices the absence in ways he did not expect. He notices the quiet after work, the stillness before sleep, the empty space where your energy used to live. He starts remembering things he brushed past before. The way you listened, the way you showed up, the way your messages carried warmth even when he gave very little back. These things do not always hit while you are still available, still speaking, still trying to repair the connection in real time. They hit after. They hit when the noise is gone. They hit when your presence is no longer there to soften the impact of your absence. That is why silence can work so deeply. Not as a game, not as manipulation, but because distance removes distraction. And without distraction, memory gets louder. This is the part many people do not understand. Men often process feelings later, when there is no one talking. Later, when there is no argument to focus on. Later, when they are alone with the emotional weight they kept pushing forward to some future moment that suddenly arrives. And when that future moment comes, the mind begins replaying what the heart did not fully accept before. Stay with this point because it changes everything. Your silence does not always erase you from his mind. Many times, it places you right in the center of it. When you were constantly explaining yourself, he did not have to reflect deeply. The emotional labor was being done in front of him. You were carrying the weight of the connection. You were naming the issues, trying to create clarity, trying to save something from falling apart. And because of that, he could stay passive. He could stay half present. He could let your effort cover the space where his own self-examination should have been. But when you stop, when the messages stop, when the energy shifts, when he no longer has constant access to your thoughts, something sharp begins to happen in his mind. The quiet becomes a vacuum. And the human mind hates a vacuum. It starts filling that empty space with memory, imagination, regret, and unfinished emotion. Suddenly he remembers details he once ignored. The little things, the way you cared, the way you understood him without needing everything explained, the way your presence made things softer, steadier, warmer. He may hear a song and think of you. He may pass a place and feel something sink in his chest. He may lie in bed and feel the silence louder than any argument you ever had. That is because absence creates reflection in a way over-explaining never can. Words can be argued with. Words can be dismissed. Words can be twisted, delayed, answered later, or not answered at all. But absence sits there. It lingers. It leaves no easy target. It forces the mind inward. And once the mind turns inward, the truth it avoided starts moving closer to the surface. This next part is important, so do not miss it. Reflection does not feel gentle to someone who has been avoiding themselves. It feels like pressure. That pressure becomes even stronger when guilt enters the room. And guilt grows best in silence. It does not need noise. It does not need drama. It needs stillness. It needs distance. It needs the moment when excuses start losing their power. While you are still talking, still trying, still giving chances, he can tell himself many stories. He can say the timing is off. He can say he is stressed. He can say things are complicated. He can say he needs space. He can hide behind confusion and pretend the situation is not fully clear. But when you stop engaging, those excuses begin to fall apart. The silence turns into a mirror. And in that mirror, he starts seeing his part more clearly than he ever wanted to. He remembers the moments he should have been honest and chose comfort instead. He remembers the times you were hurting and he stayed vague. He remembers how long you waited while he gave just enough to keep the door open and not enough to build anything safe. This is what guilt does. It removes the story he used to protect his pride. It makes him face the gap between who he thinks he is and how he actually behaved. And that gap is painful, very painful. Because now it is not just about losing you. It is about realizing he mishandled something real. He may try to distract himself. He may stay busy. He may act normal on the outside. But guilt is patient. It sits quietly. It waits at night. It appears in still moments. It returns when the room is dark and there is nothing left to scroll, nothing left to do, and no one left to blame. Men often hate guilt because guilt demands action. Sadness can be ignored for a while. Confusion can be delayed. Missing someone can be hidden behind ego. But guilt presses harder. It says you knew better. It says you felt more than you admitted. It says you should have handled that differently. And once that voice gets strong enough, silence becomes uncomfortable. He checks his phone more than he wants to admit. He opens old messages. He wonders whether you are moving on.